What's up, YouTube? Thanks for checking out this video, and as promised last week, it's time to talk battle boards. So, when it comes to battle boards, first thing I always get is, what is a battle board? A battle board is actually one of my, I would say, fingerprints in gamification. Is something that I think I've come up with that I'm starting to see pop up around in the gamification world and education, and it's pretty neat to see. Now, what is a battle board? The question is very simple. It is a place for kids to submit work in my classroom. It's since grown from that idea, though, to actually be a place where I do pop quizzes, challenges, and other mysterious kind of things like that. It's also become a place where kids can earn reward as well as potential punishment. It encourages exploration and risk-taking and things like that. So I want to kind of walk you through step by step how my battle board came to be, how you can create your own, and how really it's a zero budget thing because you can get really creative and really good at recycling old materials. So, let's go into BattleBoard 101.
Alright, so taking a look at my battle board, you can see that what I have created here is something that fits my theme. And a lot of videos that I mention, I'm a huge proponent on theme. So I wanted to create a battle board that looked like a medieval wasteland because that is exactly the area that I'm trying to convince my kids we are in through this gamification. My battle board is made of a 4x8 sheet of plywood trimmed with 2x4s. This creates a 4x8 sized battleground, which for most classrooms will fit a little bit snug, but actually you want your battle board to be a focal point of your classroom because it will draw a lot of attention. This year I added an extension to it, which is 2 feet wide by another 8 foot long, simply by just taking a segment of a 4x8 sheet. Please remember that if you were to add sand or things like I did, which I'll talk to you in a moment, you're going to want to reinforce it. Don't just have a straight piece of wood underneath as just a straight 4x8 sheet. You're going to want to make sure that you reinforce it with that support. Creating a battle board creates a little bit of a sacrifice of space. So you have to be clever about how you display and support your board. So what I did was I purchased simple 9x9 box shelves from IKEA. And this provided me with 18 different little points of storage that I can use for my room. Also, underneath, because of the way that the board was built, I have a large 6x4 space where I can store a lot of the different things that I want in my classroom. One tip that I learned almost the hard way was you can see I have a brace board at the bottom. This is simply because these IKEA things can be a little bit wobbly, and if you're actually not able to secure your board right to a table or to a desk or something more sturdy, I had to put a 2x6 at the bottom in which to brace it so it had a little bit more stability and didn't wobble. Now again, your battle board can be any size you want. Mine is 4x8 because I actually recycled an old Lego robotics table that we had. So I didn't actually have to spend any money there. And it was already painted black, so it was very easy. When I made the addition, it was just simply a little bit of borrowing paint from the art supplies and go ahead and finish it up there. So that is the size and shape of my battle board. Let's talk about dressing it up. When it comes to dressing up the battle board, I mentioned earlier I wanted it to look like a medieval wasteland. So the first thing I did was I actually covered the battle board in sand. So all I did was I went to a little park that we have just outside the school, and I scooped up a bunch of sand and I covered the board with sand. This went ahead and created that idea that we were in kind of a medieval wasteland. What I then wanted to do was create a moving path similar to a board game. So I was donated a board game called Siege, and I actually was donated by a local Walmart to my classroom a Magic the Gathering board game, and it contained custom boards that looked like this. Because they had all the hexagon shapes, I cut them out and I was able to create walking paths. Now certain of them have different symbols on the other side, like fire, so you can get creative and say, oh no, now there's a fire tile. More on that later. So once I was satisfied, I created my walking path all the way around my board. You then need the characters that the people will be using or your students will be using. In that same Magic the Gathering board game, I was fortunate enough to receive 5 little characters like this that look like heroic medieval time magician kind of things, and they fit the game perfect. So I created a little starting point for them, and I was fortunate enough that I now had my good guys. So of course, all good guys need bad guys to battle. So what I was fortunate enough is I went onto a buy and sell site in my community of Edmonton, or just outside my community, and I was gifted a whole bunch of these magic Warhammer type characters. Now I was fortunate enough that the set they had was actually medieval orcs and skeletons and things. So I took these characters and I set them up around the board, and I was able to start creating a little bit of a feel of kind of a war zone. In that same siege set I mentioned earlier, it is actually an elastic castle that can explode when hit with cannonballs. So I took this and I set this up. I added a little bit of paint for blood because grade 8's blood, you get their attention. And I set it all up so that I had an actual target that the kids were advancing towards. Fortunately, the game also comes with these miniature catapults, and these miniature catapults become what kids are trying to shoot with to knock over enemies. I then started to get creative. I used gravel I found around the playground. I used some of the decor and pieces that came with the siege set. I used different rocks. I used fake shrubs that I found at the dollar store. And I began to start to decorate the environment. This is where you let your creativity fly. There's nothing that you can put in the battle board that doesn't work as long as it fits towards your theme. For example, this right here is the filter from a kettle. But when you took the filter out, normally like this, when you looked at it vertically, it looked like an old medieval window. So I took it, put an item behind it, and I created an accessory in my board. Things like cotton, which will be quite frequently sold right now around the Halloween time, are really good for creating spider webs. Getting fake spiders can create the illusion that you have a spider grounds or something like that in your battle zone. With the board now built and set up to my satisfaction, and much to the excitement of the students, I need to figure out a way to use it. So here is how you use battle boards. So the first thing that's going to happen is kids are going to get a quest, which is my word for work. And when they get their quest, they're going to receive one that, to get to the battle board, typically is called a battle quest or a fight. And what that is actually just nothing more than a worksheet, which I call a battle sheet in this sense. And instead of earning marks per question, they're earning damage that they can inflict. So for example, if you have a 1-point question on a worksheet, you actually just translate that into 1 damage. From there, the kids are going to receive the monster sheet. This signifies the monster that they're fighting in that battle. Underneath the monster sheet, you're going to see that it has a series of hearts. These hearts represent the amount of damage it's going to take to eliminate that monster or that creature. After the creature is eliminated, they win the battle. But during the battle and the process of eliminating the hearts is where this battle board actually comes into play. So let me explain. One of the biggest pet peeves we have as a teacher is when kids blow through work really fast. We know that they actually know it, but it turns out that what's going on is they're skipping, they're going way too quick, and they're making a lot of needless and careless errors. So I wanted a way to do that. So the first thing that my Battleground did was it encouraged kids to slow down and make sure that when you submit your work, that you submit it with high quality and giving it a nice thorough review, because you can actually die in my battle. So if you get questions wrong, you get damage inflicted upon you. And you're going to see at the bottom of the battle sheet, you actually have a health meter. And in this health meter dictates how much health that you have for this battle. Every time you get a question wrong, the monster or enemy swings at you, eliminating one of your hearts. Lose all of your hearts before the enemy loses theirs and you die. The character that's eliminated from the battle actually loses all of their money and all of their game cards, but I don't touch their progress. So, let me walk you through a battle. So to start, I have the good people, or the good guys, on the left of the board, and I have the bad guys on the right of the board. So in this case, my grade 8 start on the left, and my grade 7 start on the right. I always start on the opposite, representing the person that they're interacting with. So I might be the goblins the good are fighting, or the, good knights that the bad are fighting. I had to create this modification because I actually have grade 7s this year, and as I alluded to in a previous video, I believe it was episode 7, I explained that having grade 7s, to incorporate them, I created the fact that they are actually now the enemies that the grade 8s are chasing down. So the first thing you do to start a battle is you pick the 2 characters that are going to represent your guild in the battle. Here are the good, and here are the bad. You step your 2 characters forward to show that you're ready for battle. The students, who would be standing right here, are going to have their battle sheet ready with all of their prepared answers. I, on the opposite side, will be standing here with the correct answers ready to go engage in the battle. The next thing I have are my dice of decision. The dice of decision are what we use to roll. I use one of these 6-sided dice, and I always go to a dice shop in Invermere, actually, that sells a lot of different games, and they have some really unique dice, and every year I buy some unique ones. I have some 20-sided dice that I use for something different, which we'll save for another video. This is just the basics. The students begin by calling out their answers. Every time they inflict damage, they X off some of the damage from the monster. Every time they earn a total of 4 damage points, we move to the dice of decision and they get to make their first roll. So they go ahead and they roll. In this case, we received a 1. So you take the character that you want to choose and you determine the type of movement you want. This is a new feature I have this year. I have what's called locked in movement and free exploration. Locked in movement means that your character is stuck to the different paths that have been created in the board, similar to board game pathways. You can't deviate from them. However, that is limiting because you'll see that certain things on my battle board, for example, this little blue potion, actually has no pathway to reach it. And because of that, we can't get there. This is where my idea came from for this year, was to add in free exploration. The student, if they roll a 1 in free exploration, would put their character on the starting tile at the beginning on either side of the board, and they would line it up in the direction they want to travel. If they rolled a 1, they would move 1 inch forward. If they rolled a 6, they would move 6 inches forward. After they earn their next 4 damage, they roll a second time. And they would be able to say, I want to go this way. And if they hypothetically rolled a 4, they'd be able to walk this way. So what you're going to see is that the characters are able to actually free explore anywhere on the board. So here is where your creativity can really fly. Going to a local store here called Michael's, which I'm sure exists quite all over the place, I went to their miniature section and I started finding all kinds of unique things that they had. Whether it was mirrors like this, or little bushes and shrubs, little eggs, bones, different types of characters, these little mushrooms. As Halloween being right now, I found little grave related things. Even an old Lego crown. And I started to hide these things all around the board. Where kids get excited is that every time they move through the board, they have the potential to earn different rewards for successful completion of work. So the higher the accuracy, the better they score. But if this is a medieval wasteland, the opportunity to encounter enemies exists. So if you were in locked in mode and you were progressing up a path and you landed here, you would be faced with a battle. You'll notice that these characters are approximately the same size as your character. So this is called a standard battle, which simply uses the game of war, typically used for cards, but we use dice. Each enemy you encounter has 4 health, and in these battles, so do you. So simply put, because I needed a game mechanism that was simple, easy, and quick to use, but also took a little bit of skill out of it and applied the element of luck. So what I do is I do dice war. I take 1 dice representing one of the enemies they would fight, so they would turn and say, I am fighting this person, and they would roll their dice. In this case, they just rolled a 2. I would roll on behalf of the monster, and in that case, I rolled a 3. Therefore, this character would lose 1 damage point. It's a best of 7 race to 4. If the enemy is defeated, there is a prize of 15 gold for the team. If they are defeated, anything that this character was holding stays with that character, just like if a character were to die in an RPG game, the equipment stays with them. You have 2 characters, so now the second person can try to come and collect and win the battle that was just lost, or they can explore a different area of the board. This is a bit of incentivizing, which I know is a controversy in schools. However,
I understand completely that to grade 8 kids, learning about cellular biology or why fluids flow is probably not on their radar right now. So to get them with a carrot on a string to become actually engaged in the content that they're learning, I believe is totally fine. What I realize is I make the reward more difficult to earn throughout the year as I take items out or make some items bad or good depending on the location and the difficulty to get there. And because the rewards drop, they actually start to forget about the reward and it actually becomes more intrinsic, which I found to be quite a success for me.
So whether you're in locked in mode or free exploration, you progress up the board, exploring and discovering and picking up things, not knowing what they do. And at the end of the battle, we determine who's won or lost.
If the student wins the battle, at the end we look at any items or tokens or enemies they've defeated, and we piece everything together and we determine what their prizes are. A lot of the little tokens that I showed you earlier, from that Lego crown to that little blue bottle, are representative of different cards that I have in my store or in my game. So that little blue potion is actually an XP freeze card. So they'll be awarded that XP freeze card. The student who actually wins that token has the ability to put it back on the board at the end of the battle to be found later in an area that we both agree upon. However, I change the value of tokens all the time. So you don't want kids to say, oh, you need to go get the blue potion because I know it's really, really good. I might change the blue potion by adding a drop of red and making it purple. I don't have a purple potion in my game, so if you pick it up, you might actually pick up a cursed card. So there's very much risk reward. When you look at the hexad of player types, I want to make sure that I'm honoring the different kinds. So I want to make sure the explorer and the achiever and the socializers have the ability to go in here and find different value. Your achievers are just trying to score high, so they're gonna go. The explorers are looking for rewards, so they're gonna vantage into different areas to uncover certain things. And your socializers are gonna be very good at debating and determining, should we get this, should we go here. So you wanna make sure that you're hitting those different character types and player types in your game so that the board works across the board, so to speak. So the battle board has been really successful for me. So that right there is BattleBoard 101. The BattleBoard is actually a place in your classroom where work can be submitted. Now you can actually utilize the BattleBoard in different ways. You can do trivia and then have the ability of guilds to launch back and forth cannonballs at each other to try to knock each other over in a guild battle review game. You can also use it as a spontaneous board where you can call kids up to the board and say, you can roll right now if you can answer the following question. So it keeps kids current on the material that they're learning. It is easily the most popular feature in my classroom and kind of my nice little stamp in the world of gamification. The BattleBoard for me started so small and so simple and just continues to grow based on ideas of kids.
Now before you get all excited and go, oh my god, this BattleBoard thing looks super complicated, this is actually a photo I have on my website, on my blog, of actually the original BattleBoard. So you can actually see that the BattleBoard had next to nothing in it. It was just literally an area where I would have students actually just call out answers for work. So as you can see, over the course of the next 2.5 years, the BattleBoard has really grown. So don't worry about where you start. You can always progress.
For example, I've had it so that enemies drop loot bags when you defeat them, which are my custom scratch tickets to determine if the creature that they've eliminated has actually dropped something that's of value to them to collect. All in all, when it comes to designing and building battle boards, let your creativity fly, make sure that you ask around, use old things, recycle, reuse, and above all, make it fit the theme of your classroom. Battle boards are guaranteed to be one of the most fun areas of your classroom. An area where kids will thrive and kids will push themselves in ways that they typically would not. Whether it's exploration or risk-taking, it's all about these new trends in education where we got to get kids out of these desks and out of these rows and out of these imaginary factories that schools have become and get them to be critical thinkers, explorers, and risk-takers. Until next time.